Here we go. Have you ever wondered about PTO, paid time off across the globe? How many vacation days do people get in different countries? I've been wondering that, and so I looked it up. And I'm gonna share what I found with you today. So before we get into it, this is like for entertainment purposes. I mean, nothing I say in here should be taken as like legal truth. Wherever you are in the world, please look up, research your local laws, your work laws, your PTO, your vacation days, minimal leave policies if they're in place, holidays, whatnot. This is what I found online to be the most up-to-date information, but if I say something and you're like, I'm from that country and it's changed since, let me know in the comments, all right? Keep me up to date, you know, but this is what I found and this is what I wanted to share. These are data based on minimum legal requirements. So, you know, if you're living in one of these countries, you could potentially be getting more. Let's get into it. So we're gonna start with the countries that have some of the most PTO days a year. Then we're gonna go through some that I found interesting, kind of they sit in the middle. Some had some interesting rules. And we're gonna end with the least amount of PTO globally, all right? And for this, I pulled about, I think we're like 18 to 20 different countries. So if your country's not in here, I still appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. Okay, I do have my notes here, so stick with me. I couldn't put these all in my brain space, no room. It's a busy week. One of the top countries, Austria. So Austria, what average number of PTO days is about 25. Keep in mind, these are like minimum legal requirements. So employees with fewer than 25 years of experience in Austria are entitled to 25 days of annual leave. Can you imagine? People from Austria are like, yeah, I can. Employees who have been with the same firm for 25 years or more are entitled to 30 days off a year of annual leave. And then they're also entitled to 13 paid public holidays, bringing the total to 38 days off a year minimum. Can you tell I'm not from Austria? That sounds pretty good. Another top contender, France. I'm not surprised by this at all. So they had a lot of rules in this one. So 5 weeks, so 30 days with Saturdays, but not Sundays counted as holidays. Plus average number of PTO days is anywhere between 25 to 37. Why the range, you ask? Great question. I'll tell you shortly. And then public holidays, 11 a year. So that brings the minimum PTO days a year anywhere from 36 to 48. That's so high. So here it says 5 weeks plus up to 22 days of RTT, réduction du temps de travail. In English, please. Reduction of working time for the employees that choose to work more than 35 hours a week. The limit is 39 per week. Further additional hours are compensated in almost all the cases by money and not by additional leave hours. Bonus days off are given to people who take a part-time of their annual leave outside of summer. So there's a lot of rules in this one. Anyways, that's a lot of days off. I am intrigued. France, how you doing over there? Probably having the time of your life with your time off. Spain, also in the top group, with average number of PTO days, 22, with 14 paid holidays, bringing the total to 36. That's pretty good. Another country that I found that had quite a few was Sri Lanka. I went there early this year, so I was like, I'm curious as to how your working practices are. So in practice, most of the religious and festival holidays are available with most jobs. So most jobs would allow you to take these. And there's 20 days paid leave off, and there's 20 public holidays, totaling 40. However, I know that they said when I was looking up, so shop and office employees are entitled to a minimum of 14 days of annual leave and 8 days public holiday. So from what I gather here, it kind of depends what industry you're in, but if you're in an industry that has all 20, that's a pretty good starting. 40? Any of my Sri Lankan work besties want to chime in and let me know how many days off do you have a year? Panama was also up there. Employees are entitled to enjoy 30 days of annual leave and 10 public holidays paid for 40 days. Malta was very high as well with 27 average of PTO days and 14 paid public holidays, bringing the title of 41. I've been wanting to go to Malta. That's been on the list for a little while. I've heard great things. I heard it's beautiful. This blew my mind, but then also didn't. Luxembourg. There's a lot of rules, but it's very interesting. So what caught my eye with Luxembourg was they have private sector, minimum PTO days annually was 26. Public sector was based on age. So the age is interesting because it's not necessarily how long you've been at the company from what I understand. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but it's your actual age. So it's like 32 days off is what you get if you work public sector for your just PTO days a year. But if you're aged 50 to 54, then you get 34 days, and then 36 days if you're 55 plus. But then there's 11 paid holidays. So it really depends, I guess, age and if you work private versus public. Could be, your minimum could be anywhere from 37 up to 47. But then they have also type of extraordinary leave. And I know a lot of companies will have this in their policies of like you get, you know, a certain amount of days off for like grievance and whatnot. But this is like in their legal policy, like nationwide. Like you have to do this as a company. And it breaks it all out. So I'm gonna read these to you because I was like, this is fascinating. This is the only country that I've seen this for. If another one exists out there, please let me know. But if you get married, you get 6 days off. Death of a spouse, partner, parent, adult child, 3 days off. Death of a child under 18, 5 days off. Death of a grandparent or grandchild, you get 1 day off. And death of a sibling living in the same household, 3 days off. Marriage of a child, you get 2 days. If you're moving houses, if you're moving houses, but you can only do it once in every 3-year period, you get 2 days off just to move. Like this is on top of your PTO. If you adopt a child under 16, you get 2 days off, but if you work private sector, you get 10 days off. The birth of a child for father only is 10 days. I assume the maternity leave is like a completely different documentation, but for the father only is 10 days off. Like this was just really interesting to me because it's like way more in depth of legal minimums than I've seen with a lot of different countries. All right, let's get to some of like the middle ones. Germany, another one was like a lot of rules depending on, you know, where you are necessarily. And so we're just gonna keep it simple. So in general, 20 days off minimum for PTO, 10 paid public holidays for 30. That's okay as a minimum, 30. I guess we're on the lower side. UK was 20 days off a year, 8 to 10 public holidays that were paid. So anywhere from 28 to 30 was like kind of a minimum. Italy was 20 days off PTO, minimum 12 paid public holidays, 32 days a year kind of standard. And did they have any special? What I found interesting about Italy's was employees have the right to paid leave to deal with sick children up to 3 years or unpaid leave for older ones. That's like written out in their laws, which, oh no, Italy has quite a few rules. Workers have the right to 15 days of paid leave for their wedding, is what I found online. 15, wow. And a special provision allows people who are in charge of disabled children or relatives to have more days of paid leave each year. I'm gonna have to read up more on Italy. This is interesting. They also have up to 104 hours of ROL time, reduction of working time, used primarily in blocks of a few hours. And this is more like kind of what I think I've seen here classified as like dependent care days or personal care days, where it's like if you have to bring your kid to the doctor or you're taking care of like a relative or your parents and you have appointments and whatnot. So they actually have that built in right into their kind of legal policies, which is interesting. Okay, moving on. South Korea, 15 to 25 was kind of like the minimum average PTO. And then 15 public holidays. So you could be really anywhere from like 30 to 45 days to 40 days. Good math, Laura. 30 to 40 days. So 15 days are for workers who have worked for 3 years. 1 day is added every 2 years, continuously worked up to a maximum of 25. Fine print. Generally, it is common practice that workers only get a few days off a year or only take a few days off a year, no matter how many days they have left, though extra bonuses might be paid out for the existing time. South Korean work besties, you want to chime in? Is that true? Is it kind of like these are the minimums, but culturally people don't really take them? Like it's not really encouraged at a company? Because I mean, that's the thing too, is there's so much nuance in this where it's, I think there are two huge players when it comes to time off. One is like the policies in place and the minimums and the days that you're actually allocated to get, and two is culture. And if those days are actually encouraged and reinforced for you to take them and accepted, or if you take those days, are you going to get a bit of a target on your back at work, or it's going to be perceived that you are lazy, or you know what I mean? Like culture plays so much into taking time off. All right, Kenya. So I found 21 is kind of the annual minimum for PTO, plus 10 paid holidays, bringing the total to 31. Pretty straightforward. India, 25 days PTO standard to start, and then 10 paid holidays, bringing the total to 35. People working in India are entitled to take 18 vacation days a year, along with the additional 7 days of casual leaves, totaling 25 a year. Okay, so this is kind of grouping casual leave and vacation days. The number of vacation days and the number of personal days might differ within a company. So you could have, like, as long as they total 25, it's fine. So you could have 5 of your casual leave days and then 20. What's the difference? Is casual leave kind of similar to like a sick day? Like it's like a last minute thing, it can't be pre-planned? I have questions. I know we got a lot of work besties from India, so let me know. And then we've got Australia, the Aussies. That's not an Australian accent, Laura. 20 days, PTO kind of minimum, 10 paid holidays, 30. I feel like 30 is kind of what I'm seeing is like the standard average number. Estonia, recently met a lovely girl from Estonia, so Estonia made the list. 28 days, PTO kind of annual leave minimum, 12 paid holidays, bringing the total to 39. That's very high. Minimum annual holidays, 28 calendar days, unless the employee have agreed upon a longer period. So that is the minimum. 28 days starting. Oh, wow. So I was kind of looking through the list and I was looking at total numbers of days off, and Iran popped up as 53 days, with 27 days being paid public holidays and 26 being the PTO days allocated a year. And that caught my eye because I'm like, 53 days is a lot of days. Let me read further into this. Annual paid leave entitlement is 1 month, okay? Including 4 Fridays. But I didn't know this. The work week in Iran is 6 days. In most countries, the work week is 5 days and we get 2 days off on the weekend. So then I went, oh, so that's okay. So that's actually not a lot of PTO days because there's only a 1 day weekend. Gotta read the fine print. I mean, some of these. 53 sounds like a great number until I read only 1 day weekends. So now we're getting into the lowest, on the lower end, let's say, of the PTO. So we've got Japan. PTO minimum, so anywhere between 10 and 20 is kind of the minimum. And then public holidays paid, 0. There's 16 holidays, but you don't legally have to pay them. So it kind of leaves it up to the employer and the company. 10 to 20 is kind of the minimum you're seeing in Japan. That's a very low number when you account that that's for public holidays and for PTO. Yeah, no legal provisions for pay on public holidays. Workers employed for at least a year and a half get 1 additional day of leave every year of service. So you start at 10. This is what I'm seeing. Up to 20 days. So you can't exceed 20 days is like the max. I'm curious though if you are from Japan or if you've worked in Japan, when you hit 20, that's like absolute max, or is it kind of company specific where some companies will go a little bit higher than that, or is it truly like across the board 20 is the absolute max? Let me know. And is it common? I know that there isn't a law that says that employers have to pay for public holidays, any of those 16 days, but what have you seen? Do they tend to pay for it? Do they tend to not pay for it? Let me know what you've seen in practice. Costa Rica was on the lower end too, with 10 days of vacation days PTO and then 9 paid public holidays. Employees get 2 weeks minimum of annual leave. It's kind of just very basic. And then we've got Mexico. Mexico, 12 days for PTO, 7 paid public holidays, bringing the total to 19. On the lower end of things is Canada. I guess Canada actually could be kind of in the middle as well. It's just different. So in Canada, we have so many different provinces and they all have their different rules. So for example, the lowest kind of legal minimum PTO is anywhere from like 10 to 20. Like it really depends on where you live. And then also your paid public holidays depends where you live because provinces recognize different holidays. And that can be anywhere from 7 days to 13 days. So Canada just has quite a range. You could be looking at a total of 17 days up to 33 is like a bare minimum. So obviously 17 is quite low. And then 33 would be like on the decent side of kind of what we've seen. But I will say in Canada, as speaking from someone who's from here, there are like a lot, I don't want to say a lot of space, but a good amount of space for negotiation when it comes to compensation and days off. And I wouldn't say there's like a consistency across the board of company A versus B. Like if you move around, the vacation days offered can be quite different. And I've seen it kind of used as like an appealing way to get people in, of highlighting this is, the starting for vacation days, because some because there's room for it to be so low, there's opportunities to market it higher, and that could be a very attractive point for a lot of people looking for jobs. I know when I first started working, I think I started at the 2 weeks, like 10 days, got up to 3 weeks, and then got up to 4 weeks, but I was like negotiating for those when I was renegotiating contracts and whatnot. So it can really vary in Canada. And then we have the US. And from everything I've seen, so the US is an at-will country. There's no legal requirements for annual PTO. So that number would be zero, like a Cheerio. No, zero, because there is no legal requirement that anyone has to follow. There's 10 holidays, but they're not all guaranteed, because from what I understand, similar to Canada, is kind of all the states operate differently and recognize different things. So there's up to 10 potentially that you may see as a paid public holiday in the States. Paid leave is totally at the discretion of the employer, so it's not even necessarily the states. Though, does the state decide on the public holidays? No, I think the companies, especially in private sector, they decide what public holidays are off and what public holidays get paid. The average number of vacation days offered by private employees, so private sector, is 10 days after 1 year of service. After 1 year of service? 14 days after 5 years, 17 days after 10 years, and 20 days after 20 years. I knew it was low because I get stories and messages from work besties from the States all the time, but it gives potential for it to be so low, and it gives potential for it to, it's just so in control of the employer. My work besties in the US, on average, what have you seen as the normal, typical number of vacation days if you're starting your career versus while you're well into it? And then for paid public holidays, what have you seen? Because it could just be so vastly different. Like, because it's so unregulated and it's really left up to the employer. I just can't believe that 10 days after a year. So is that mean you don't get a single vacation day for the first year of your employment? Yes or no? Let me know, because that's pretty wild. We're gonna end there, because those were the countries I had prepared. I wish I could go through every single one, but we simply don't have the time today. But if there's countries that you're really curious about, let me know in the comments, and maybe we'll do another video like this. I appreciate you being here as always. If you do have PTO to use, please schedule it. Take every dang day off this year that you have allocated to you, because at the end of the day, paid days off are part of your total compensation. So just like your paycheck, take it. You would never say, I don't need my paycheck this week. Just throw that out, that's fine. That's what you're doing with your vacation days if you don't use them. It's part of your total compensation. So thank you for being here as always. We'll see you in the next video, work bestie. Toodaloo.